This is the Innovative Minds Tutor. Welcome to this channel. Well, guys, on our previous video, since we're dealing with inverse functions, we did learn about some basics, some important basics of restricting a domain and range, right? So in this video, we will be looking at the interpretation. Well, don't mind my sketch, because I used a rough hand. So please draw yours accurately using a ruler. So, but in this video, I'll emphasize the most important thing, which is interpreting the sketch, right? So we are going to interpret the graph of a parabola. We are going to restrict it to to be a one-to-one function, to be a function. So remember we said that we're going to restrict the domain and the range when you want to make it a one-to-one function. Then you will use what do you call a vertical line test to test whether it's one-to-one function, right? So we are given a set face there, the graph of f of x, which is a parabola, which is negative x squared, and we are being told there's a graph y is equals to x. Where does this one will go to? Let's see. It will pass us through here. I'll use a dotted line. It will pass us through here. Yes, until where the graph ends. But probably it's very important that you use a ruler. So there will be a dotted line. So which is y is equals to x. So it's very essential that you use a ruler. So the first part is to determine the domain, the range of f. What I want you to see to determine the domain is to determine the domain and the range of f, right? So when you're determining those two, it is very essential to know that in grade 11, remember, whenever we're finding the domain of a parabola, remember we said that it's x, it's an element of real numbers, right? So for this domain here, the solution will be x, it's an element of real numbers. So what about the range? The range of f will also depend on how your graph is. Is your graph set? If a is greater than 0, y also will be greater than 0. But if a is lesser than 0, y also will be lesser than 0. So in this case, your range will be y is lesser than 0, or rather you will write it as y it's an element of negative infinity and 0. Yes, you can write it in this manner or in this manner. So when it comes to determining the domain and the range of f. Number 2 or B, restrict the domain of f so that its inverse, it's a function. Remember what I told you yesterday. We said that when we restrict, it's either x will be lesser or equal to 0, or rather it will be x is greater or equal to 0. Or you could it can be written as negative infinity and 0, or x is an element of 0 and infinity. So when you write it in that manner, you will also be safe. You will also be safe, guys. You'll also be safe. So in terms of sketching, someone may ask, the first point we can see from there, it's 0 is to 0. So when you write, you're going to say 0 is to 0. If you swap, it's still going to be 0 is to 0. So we are looking for the points that will help us to draw the graph. So by the look of things, we can see that 0, this is probably negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So it's going to be negative 1 and negative 1 in this case. So negative 1 and the negative 1. So it doesn't change. It's still going to be negative 1 when you swap. So we'll also look at let's consider this. We also have negative 4, so this should be 0, negative 1, negative 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this can be negative 2 is to negative 4. Sorry for my sketch, guys. It's not that accurate because, you know, I didn't use a ruler. So I'll advise that you use a ruler so that you do things correctly. So when you swap here, we're going to have negative 4 and negative 2. Remember, we interchange the coordinates, right? I hope that's important to note. Another point that we have the other side, it's 1:1, which will also not change, so it will remain as 1:1. Other point that we have as well, it's 2:4, which will also be 4:2. All right, which is also be 4:2. So when you're here, guys, now we'll go to the next page, and so that we draw our sketch. Yes, remember we are going to look for let me just write number C. I'll just write C, right? So when you go to, firstly, we'll start with the first restriction. Remember, the first restriction was when x is lesser than 0. So when you draw this, when you yourself, remember this is y, and we said yeah, it's negative 6. Also said it's negative 3. Also said it's 3. Also said it's 6. Then lastly it's x here, the x-axis. So when you are here, remember we swap our coordinate. Remember we have negative 1:1. We said it won't change. Let's start with the original one. It was negative 1:1. Then we also have negative 2:4. So this is negative 2, negative 2. So this will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll put it here. So remember, 0:0 remain the same. Remember, that was the original one. Okay, this is the graph of f. I'm restricting. I've cut the other arm, guys. Remind you, I've cut the other arm. So negative 1:1 will remain the same here. So we also gonna have, remember we have we also have negative 2:negative 4. We said when you swap this will be negative 4:negative 2. So negative 4 somewhere here. Remember it's negative 3, negative 4. So negative 4 is to 2, right? Negative 4:2. So this is 0, 1, 2, right? Negative 1. Remember we said negative 1:1. It's still the same. So they share here. They also share 0 here. So when you draw this will be, you're going to have something like you're going to have something like this. Yep. Yes, when you've cut the arm, yes, it should be like this. Sorry for my inaccuracy in terms of drawing, but you are going to have something like this. So in other words, it will be more of something like this, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So yeah, we're going to have, it will be more of something like this. X is less than or equal to 0. So but you'll follow your coordinates, then you'll have a proper sketch. I'm not good in this thing of drawing, but I'm just helping you to know how to interpret. Yeah, I think I'll have to work on that as well, because yeah, there's also room for learning, right? So we have cut the other arm. Remember the graph was like this. Then we'll also have another one that will face like this. So we cut we did cut the other arm, so we are left with this part, right? So what will be our other arm? Our other arm will we are going to have something like this. We follow the restrictions. Remember, the other restriction says that x is greater or equal to 0. Well. So the other arm you are going to have something like this. Also gonna have something like this. So this is the inverse, and this is the original graph. So remember here the inverse will be this graph, right? Yeah, so you can use different color so that we can see which one is the inverse and which one is not. Yeah, I hope I'm making sense there. Am I making sense? So I guess we have answered our last question, which was draw a sketch of the inverse according to a restriction above the domain and range of the inverse function. So that's how you would have answered such graph. I hope I'm making sense. Let's do the last question then. The last question is that the graph of f of x is given as negative x, open the bracket, x minus 1, close the bracket, squared, minus 2, are sketched below with the graph of y is equals to x. So it will pass through the origin, this one, remember. So y is equals to x, right? So that's the graph of y is equals to x. Then they said draw a sketch of the graph of the inverse of f, So from the look of things here, we have 0, 1, 2, negative 3 and 0 here. We have 0 and negative 3. The points, if you take the points, is 0 and negative 3. You're also gonna have what are we having also? We are also having, let's see, this is 0, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have negative 2 and negative 6. Let's analyze the other points. So this is 0, 1. So 1 and negative 1. Other points, it's 1 and negative 1. We also have 1 and negative 1. We'll see it will be negative 2. So we have 1 and negative 1. We also have 3 and negative 6. Yes, so as well as your negative 3 and negative 6. Let's start with this one. Negative 3 and negative 6 and 3 and 6. So you're going to swap. Remember, it's negative 3 and 0. It's going to be negative 6 and negative 2. It's going to be negative 1 and 1. It's going to be negative 6 and negative 3. It's going to be 6 and 3. So how will this inverse be? All right. If we start with negative 0 and negative 3, that will be negative 3 and 0. So the other point will be here. So if we go to negative 6, negative 6 goes with what? Negative 2. So this will be negative 6, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2. Somewhere here. It's going to be somewhere here. Then we also have negative we also have negative 6 and 3. So this will be 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. Yes. Okay. We also have negative, okay. We also have negative 6 and 2. Negative 6 and 2. So, but let me not put all of them. But we are going to have a sketch like this. Is you can put all of them, and but the emphasis it's how will the sketch be. We'll have a sketch like this, guys. Yes, this is how sketch will be. If you put your pointers, if you put all your points very well, you're going to have your sketch as that. And also we also having negative 3 and 6, which is 6 and negative 3. 6 and negative 3. Also have negative 6 and 2. You can also put negative 6 and 2 somewhere here. Then also negative 1 and 1. Negative 1 and 1 was supposed to be here. Yeah, but yeah, I might have made a mistake somewhere. So, but the emphasis is that I want you to see this. This will be your inverse. Yes, where I made a mistake, guys, kindly correct me in terms of sketching. But I know that I did well. The sketch will be like this. Yes, we'll have an inverse like this. So this will be our the graph of inverse, and this is our original graph. So B, then they said determine the domain and range of f. This is the original graph, the graph of a parabola. So the domain will be x. It's an element of real numbers. X is an element of real numbers. What about the range and the range? Remember, it depends on a. When a is greater than 0, y will be greater than or equal to negative 2, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it should be like this. Yep, this is how your range will be. Or your range will be y. It's an element of negative infinity is to negative 2. Sorry for the background noise, guys. Right? Yeah. So then lastly, at number C, they said restrict the domain of f so that its inverse is a function. Since it doesn't pass through the origin, our x values, in order for us to for the inverse to be a function, remember the domain of the original function has to be restricted so that one arm of the parabola is cut off. So in order to do this parabola, guys, I think you what is important, let me say, no, I'm not thinking. What is important is that in order to do this parabola, you have to restrict the domain from the turning point. So remember, here it's negative 1. It's 1 and negative 1. It's 1 and negative 1. So you're going to focus on the x value of a turning point, which is 1. So meaning that our solution will be x is less than or equal to 1, or x is greater or equal to 1. I'll repeat again. Someone may ask, Richard, where did you get this one? Where did you get this one? Okay, in order for the inverse, guys, I'll repeat this. In order for the inverse to be a function, the domain of the original function has to be restricted so that one arm of the parabola is cut off. So in order to do this parabola, guys, you have to restrict the domain from the turning point. Then the restriction is either it can be x is less than 1 or x is greater or equal to 1. I'll repeat again, lastly, so that you hear what I'm saying. In order for the inverse to be a function, the domain of the original function has to be restricted so that one arm of the parabola is cut off. In addition, in order to do this to a parabola, you have to restrict the turning point. Yes, merely the x values. Yes, in case the x values, you will focus on the x value. So the restriction is either x is less or equal to 1, or x is greater or equal to 1. I hope that is clear. So in these two activities, we have learned about restricting the domain and range. We have also learned how to sketch Please guys, don't be like Mr. Richard. Do your proper sketch. Use a ruler and a pencil when drawing, because in exam you'll be expected to do that. I hope guys I've shed some light with you grade 12. This week we'll focusing on inverse function. Then next week guys we'll focus on another topic. Grade 11 tomorrow, a video of trigonometry will be dropping as we are reviewing guys. It's very important for you since we are approaching term 2. Term 2 you will need this knowledge. I hope guys this video has helped you. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. It's free of charge. You don't have to pay anything. We are working on the progress of growing this channel so that we have proper tools. Keep subscribing, like, comment. I really appreciate you. See you next time. Take care.